Test, test, test. Hallo, Andrea Janis. Ah, er is. Oké, fijn.
Nog niet, ja. Je moet het ook spelen. Gewoon probleem vast. Perfect. Perché picture da quella.
Mega space. Su. Upstairs. Di là.
Noch für die Aufnahme.
Bitte.
Für die Aufnahme.
Natürlich, ja, ja. Ja. Samstag eine.
Ja, ja.
3 Stunden schon alle einloggen. Ja, so geht's gut. Hybrid. Und wir haben jetzt ja 2 Jahre intensives Training, wie wir das Ganze noch gestalten. Nicht? Also, das war man ja Jahre weit weg von dem Ganzen. Test, test, test. Test, 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 test. Bene. Si sente?
Mi sa di sì.
All right. Good morning, everybody, to the second day of the SFSCon 2022. Welcome to the Cultural Change and Education track. So our first speaker today is Andrea Janes. He's a lecturer and researcher at the FHV Vorarlberg University of Applied Sciences. They've created a portal that provides services from academia to industry, and their talk is about industry-academia collaborations and their experiences and pitfalls. So welcome, Andrea. Good morning.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, as you see from the slides, these experiences are from the time where Roberto and me were at the University of Bolzano. Now we are in other institutions, but nevertheless, we want to tell you a little bit how this industry-academia collaborations work. Okay, so the first thing to clarify is technology transfer. You hear it maybe a lot around that a lot of people talk about technology transfer. So let's see what it means. I took some definition here that says that it's the process of transferring and dissemination, like academically developed technologies to industrial organization. As such, it is quite an arrogant term. It comes from a time where maybe academics thought that they are the smartest and we need to transfer this to industry. Nowadays, I think it's really different. It's a lot that we academics, like we want to collaborate with industry to understand how things work, how industry solves certain things. And it's more, it should be more a partnership. So this is why I personally don't like so much the word technology transfer, because it looks like somebody is smarter and is transferring the knowledge. But the term that you see around the web is that. So I say here it's not easy to accomplish. One reason is the stakeholders speak so kind of different languages. One problem that we saw is it is hard to inform the industry what results we have in academia. And it is also a bit difficult to collaborate because industry and academia have different speeds. Industry is, like in industry, you prefer to have solutions in 6 months, 3 months. In academia, we think in years. So you say, okay, let's look at this algorithm in 1 year and see what we have as a result. One thing that they created here in the University of Bolzano is a smart data factory. So this is a typical example of an attempt of academia to be closer to industry. The smart data factory is here in the Neue Tech Park, and it has the task to facilitate collaborations between the industry and the university. So it's an attempt to make it easier for industry to be in contact with academia. So I want to show you just a little bit what the state of the art is, like what researchers thought about these collaborations, how it works. So there are a lot of papers describing these types of collaborations. None of them discuss like how to present oneself online, so we try to do that too. But let's have a look at the literature. So this is a very famous model how industry and academia collaborate. You can check if this fits with your expectations. So the idea here of Tony Gorshek is that industry starts with a problem, gives it to academia. Academia studies the state of the art, looks at the different existing solutions, develops a candidate solution, validates it in academia. For example, you can, together with students, try to find a solution or check if the solution is good. When you have something, you can pass it back to industry. Industry maybe makes a static validation. That means you try it out not with your real customers. And if you're really happy, then you try the dynamic, like you try it out in the field. And when you're happy, industry then releases the solution. So this is somehow the one possible collaboration model. I found it also interesting, I don't know if this is still valid, but when they opened the Neue Tech Park, this is what they showed us, how like one model or one idea of Neu was how the different, let's say, how the different actors collaborate. So on the left, in yellow, you see the companies that try to develop products for the market. On the right, the blue one is really the base research. You see there is a circle with base research generating state of the art. And in the middle, you have this applied research. You have somebody that tries to take results from academia and apply it in such a way, or package it in such a way that it can be useful for companies. And I think this place in the middle is the difficult one, or the tricky one, where we need to, where you need to take existing solutions and try to apply it. As I said, there are these two things I would like that you remember from the talk, like these two big problems. The time, so we all often had this problem that companies came to us and said, we need this in a month or in 2. And in academia, in 2 months, not a lot happens because it takes me maybe 1-2 months to find a student that can look at the problem. So it's not that we have people that are there ready to work on something. So it takes some time to find somebody willing to look at that. I think what is also interesting, like whenever there is a collaboration, academia, industry, funding is an issue. So there are different ways to get to fund a project. There are these crowdfunding platforms, you maybe know them, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, are the more popular. There is one that maybe people don't know that much for science, it's called Experiment. So whenever you have, it might be an interesting idea, if you want to try out something or if you want to research on something and you need funding for that, you can publish it on Experiment. If you are trying to find out something really interesting, there might be people that give you some money to do that experiment, to find it out. It's an interesting opportunity. We also looked a little bit at different other technology transfer portals, but there is not much. I also think maybe universities are not currently, they are not so good in their marketing. So if you look at the technology transfer portals of different universities, we check it out, Vienna, Graz, Wageningen, different in Germany, Austria. Most of the time you have a list of projects. So it's not that easy to understand. So what are they offering? We found an interesting one in Karlsruhe. It's KIT Research to Business. This is, I think, an interesting website because you see this part in between, like they really try to take research outputs and package them for academia. So it's a good example. This is the website. And Roberto and me, we were involved in the creation of the technology transfer for the Smart Data Factory here in Bolzano. And this is why we try to structure it similarly. If you have a look at that website, well, I skipped this. You see, we also tried to package collaboration possibilities with the local university in a form that industry could understand or find interesting. So we packaged this in different offers and try to describe what you will get for this collaboration. We also put old projects because sometimes people prefer to see past projects instead of something new, so they could see, okay, maybe I need something similar, and this is also on the website. Maybe this is also interesting. So if you think about collaborating with academia, so what different forms exist? Feasibility study is, so maybe I want to start. One thing is not working well. Academia is not, it's not a company where you get a finished product that you can then take and sell. It's a place to try out new ideas and maybe also to fail with some idea. Like you have an idea, you try it out, it doesn't work, and you go on with that. So different collaboration forms that we foresee is feasibility study. You try out if something is feasible, is possible. Prototyping, something that works very well with student theses, like you make a test of something. System design is more, okay, you sit together and try to make the plan for something or design a system. Training is more for basic things, like if somebody needs a refresher on certain subjects. Thesis is the small version, and then like where a student maybe works on something for 6 months, 1 semester. A research project is then something larger. But as I said, I think academia is not good for short 1-month projects. Research projects should be like a year or 2. Okay, I say 2 more things that are not on the slides. Like one, I said already, research is not a product, but is a process. So if you want to collaborate with academia, also in open source projects or in other projects, you should be prepared that it's not something like a library that you download and it works. It's more a collaboration aspect. The outcome is not always foreseeable. it requires collaboration, and this is often, like in my experience, a bit an issue that also from maybe company side, they are not aware of how much time is required. Because if you really collaborate, it means that we regularly meet and talk and discuss, and this costs many hours. So this cost, I mean, everybody should be aware of this collaboration costs, because it's not that you can delegate to a research center a problem, and then after 6 months you get the perfect solution. So I would warn everybody about that, because it's really a costly interaction, and yeah, I think it can be fruitful. A last comment about writing research proposals, because in the last years I was more involved in evaluating research proposals. It is difficult because one has to imagine the future and explain the idea to external reviewers. Like, how, in fact, this would be a talk on its own, like how to write good research proposals. And one of the biggest problems I have encountered lately, that people misunderstand the difference between a requirement or a goal and how I achieve it. So if you ever have to write a research proposal, don't do this mistake to say, okay, please, I need this amount of money. And then what do you do? Like when you have to describe what you do in the research proposal, you start, okay, the first months we define the requirements. Like for me as a reviewer, that sounds like you have no idea what you want to do. You just want some money to try out something. And this sounds very bad. So what I find important is to distinguish, okay, this is our objective. We don't know yet how to go there, but we have a goal. Like, it's important to describe, like when you do a research collaboration, the goal should be defined before, like this is what we want to achieve. We don't know yet the tools that we need to go there. But this is fine, to find the tools on the way. It's not so good if you say, okay, I have some vague idea and the project is also to find the goal. That's a bit then not so good. That's more like then a problem that has to be solved. Okay, that's all from my side. Thanks a lot for the attention. Just in time.
Thank you, Andrea. Are there questions?
Maybe some.
We have a microphone.
The question is twofold. First, how do you measure the output, the KPI of your activity, the foreground that you are producing? And secondly, many technology transfers in academia are obsessed with registering patents and obtaining kind of privacy as a KPI for their activity. What is your attitude towards patenting and securing IP on the foreground that you produce?
Okay, that's my personal opinion. I don't like patents, but that's a bit another discussion. So, how to measure? What's the KPI of technology transfer? You can measure it in the number of projects that you carry out. You can measure it in the amount of money that a company is willing to give you to solve that problem. I wouldn't count the patents also because, yeah, in software, fortunately in Europe, for me, like I say, fortunately, it's impossible or hard to make a software patent. Yeah, it's possible but difficult, hopefully. But yeah, you can measure it in for example, in the amount of money a company is willing to invest in trying to find that solution. Also the time. So as I said, if somebody is willing to invest hours and hours and hours to collaborate and data. I mean, you don't need to pay only in money. You can pay with data and time and people that are involved. This would be a good KPI, I think. And the first question was again. Okay. Okay. Thanks.
All right. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we have a couple of minutes, 3 minutes for the next speech. See you then. Thanks. All right, welcome back to the Cultural Change and Education track. So we will soon start with the next speech. We have guests from Red Hat. Yuri Solovyov is a software engineer at Red Hat, and Yulia Kluchnikova, if I spelled it right, is a project manager. And they're talking about the Red Hat Summer of Code in Brno, where scholars have a 2 weeks event, high school scholars between 16 and 19 years old. And they learn through open source. So welcome, and floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. So hello everyone, we are glad to see you at our session. Thank you for joining. And yeah, as was mentioned, my name is Yuri. I'm software quality engineer at Red Hat. And today I'm with my colleague.
Okay, thank you, Yuri. My name is Yulia, I'm project manager at Red Hat. And today we would like to present you Red Hat Summer Camp Brno project, an IT camp for high school students. So today we're going to cover our motivation, why we are doing what we are doing, our project goals, project introduction, and lesson we learned. And let's start with motivation. Well, we believe that the best investment you can do for a business is invest to people. And the sooner you will start, the better will be the result. And before we will continue, I know that not many people here, but I would like to ask you a question. Please raise your hand. In age of 16, you already was completely sure what you want to do for a living. Okay, well, Not much hands, right? Okay, when I was 16, I was needed to select a field, and I was out of idea what I want to do for living. I was still like young, and my parents choose a field for me. Well, I'm not the only one on that. We have some statistic number from International World Student Survey, and here are some numbers. 51% of students are not confident while they're choosing a major. 2/3 of students in the whole world overwhelmed by selecting a major. 2 of 3 university students wish they have chosen a different major. And can you imagine, more than 50%, each second student in the whole world changed their major at least once. So why this happened and how we can fix it? So firstly, this happened maybe because students don't have enough information, what they actually will see in the university, what they will study, and how their career will look like in the future. And my colleagues and I from summer camp decided how we can fix it. And we can try to fix it ideal in IT field. This is how we end up with Red Hat Summer Camp project. So our goals for our project is develop young talents, explain to students about programming, about IT world, introduce IT field to high school students. We are giving opportunity for 2 weeks to show them how IT company look like from inside. So they will be prepared. When they will go to university, they will know what they will expect when they will finish it. Help them to realize their preferences, and as much as we can, help them to select a right major. And of course, make students familiar with Red Hat people, culture, and open source. And now I will give a word to my colleague Yuri, and he will explain you about project itself.
Yeah, thank you, Yuli. So let's have a look at the project introduction. And what the Red Hat Summer Camp Brno is. It's a 2-week IT camp for high school students to learn more about Red Hat work culture, open source values, to learn more their technologies, and meet new people. It's fully free of charge, and every high school student, regardless of prior knowledge and experience, can apply for this, and the whole project is held in English. And we have 3 domains: soft skills, hard skills, and projects. So now let's have a detailed look at them. Soft skills. Students have to pass through various classes and workshops as open source way, creativity workshop, soft skills, communication workshop, and project management. And at hard skills, they learn command line interface, Git, UI UX, coding in Ruby, diverse programming languages, and computer art. And the third is projects. During 2 weeks of the camp, students have various projects where they have to apply their newly gained knowledge and experience that they get from the classes and workshops you have just seen on the previous slides. And the first project is Reshape Brno, where students have to solve various social and environmental issues representing a given role, like states, students, non-profit organizations. So the second project is called Fix Code, where students have to find potential issues in small code snippets and applications, fix them, and submit the changes using Git. And the last one is application. So students have to come up with an idea of the application, work on project initiation, business plan, create a prototype, and try to sell it to investors. And here you can see various pictures of the Summer Camp Brno, happened actually this year, this August. And here you can see various activities like working in groups, brainstorming, classes, and workshops.
Thank you. And now we would like to tell you what we learned, what we discovered with work with high school students and organizing an event for them. So regarding students, 3 main things we discovered. So first one is that high school students are extremely talented. They're really smart. Some of them look like they're already in university or even working in an IT company. It's amazing. And it's really sad that we don't have a lot of projects happening for high school students. More project and bigger part of project in IT world and everything is focusing mostly on university students and postgraduate students. Second thing that summer camp is happening in August each year, and it's summer break in Czech Republic. So it's last month of summer when high school students and school students itself can rest and don't think about school and anything. And we was really surprised and amazed that students want to get new knowledges. They're willing to know about ITs, they want to participate in activities, they want to spend this time with us. They've been like 2 weeks with us from the beginning till the end. Almost 100 attendance we got both rounds we had of the camp. And third thing that it's good to consider the high school students is your potential colleagues. We have teachers, of course, in our camp, and some of them have 5+ years of experience working in Red Hat, or even 10+ years working in IT field. And even them learn new things from students. Can you imagine? Really high potential kids. Okay, I will give word to Yuri.
Yeah, thank you. So, and I would like to share with you what I learned from project organization perspective. First of all, if you think that there is still a lot of time in your project organization, so it's an illusion. For instance, we start planning our camp 10 months in advance, and still there might be some action items left. So, think and plan your camp or project carefully and strictly. For instance, in development, we have such a term called coding freeze. It means at this point you start focusing on the implementation, because you will always generate new cool ideas you wanted to implement. But the thing is, still, you can face with stress, time pressure, and it's not really great. So think and plan carefully. Second thing again, it's about time. So more people involved, more action items needed. For instance, we work with many teams at Red Hat, like legal, IT, support, social media, branding, and many other teams. We did a great job together, so you can see our camp is real, it's happened actually. But the thing is, you have to follow a lot of official processes. When it's big corporates, a lot of meetings, a lot of requirements, a lot of discussions. Again, think and plan your time carefully. So you have to follow a track, follow deadlines, and it's really tricky. So the last one is really important. Keep in mind all legal requirements when dealing with underage students. It's really crazy. You have to follow a lot of restrictions and GDPR and many other things, especially if you're a big corporate company like US based. So, and as an example, our teachers weren't able to communicate with students outside class hours during the camp. Or for instance, when teachers ask students' name, so students, they had a right to say, like, I don't know, Mickey Mouse, and you must deal with this. You can't, like, force students to say anything or to do. So be really careful with this.
And okay, I think it's all what we had for today. We've been like a little bit too fast. Sorry for that. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for listening to our talk. We are happy to see you here.
Thank you very much. So are there questions? Can we have a microphone?
What is if a student is not pretty good in English? Is that a problem, or can he understand?
I guess I will answer. Well, it depends on the level of English. If the person is completely out of English, it might be a problem because all talks and all classes will be held in English, as usually like for IT field and everything is like held in English. We accept students with A2 because it's still Czech Republic and some of teachers might be able to speak Czech. And help. And of course, like when they speak with each other, communicate inside of the groups, students, it might be like easier for them to understand. But ideally, it would be have like students with better English. It will be easier for them, first of all.
Yeah, I can just add a few words. So from our experience, actually all students were able to speak really great English. So it wasn't A2, it was B1 or even B2 actually. So we were actually surprised that high school students, they had really great English, like university degree.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have another question? There's another question?
So how do you reach the students? Because as also you were saying, there's a lot of like laws protecting them, and how you get the students to know about this summer camp?
I think I can answer. So how, you mean like how we can get familiar and students know about it so they can join the option?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. So we have a lot of promotions inside of Czech Republic, in the Czech Republic level, in of course Brno level, because project happening on site in Brno office. And we also have contacts of different school teachers connecting to some kind of informatics on IT, and we send in some emails that there's like good opportunity to your to your students, even if students not in IT class, they can join, and we will give them all information they want, and we will help them to know and get familiar with IT.
Another question? I have a question. So, as far as we understood, this is 2 weeks, right?
Yes.
What would you recommend to, if you repeat this kind of events, to do it longer or keep it like this, or what would be if you do this camp like 4 weeks or more?
Okay. Well, I think 2 weeks is more than enough. We would wish to make it longer, of course, because we can give more knowledges and we can create more classes for students. But I think it's perfect time. Each day we have 6 hours per day of classes, and I think in case if you will make it longer, students will like not pay attention in the end. Now in 2 weeks' time you can have enough classes, you still can catch the attention of students, and they will still willing to learn new things. In case if you'll make it longer, it might be boring for them, and they will feel like they're at school. So it's still like need to make some fun for them because it's still summer.
And I want to just add a few words. We asked students to provide feedback, and we had several questions about like, should we make it shorter or longer or keep it as it is? And most answers were just keep it as it is. So not shorter, because in this case we have to drop some classes. And also, as Yuli mentioned, if it will be longer, so we will lose their attention and focus. And
So
again, it's summer.
Yeah,
And
of
there are
course.
still kids.
It should be their free time, right? So,
Yes, yes.
all right. Now we have another question here, and we still have time. So,
Typically, what is the follow-up on the educational trajectory of the people attending? Are they next to have a job, or would they go to university and have a degree before entering a job? So, and is this also some kind of recruitment? You do follow up, do you follow these people and try to hire the smartest, the brightest, or you just leave them and hope for the best?
We wanted really to help them as much as we can. Unfortunately, we cannot provide any internship for high school students yet, but we communicated also with students that in Red Hat, in case if they will go to university, they can join our company as interns while they are studying. And we already received some emails from students that they would like to participate in any future activities happening in Red Hat. So officially, we cannot keep in touch, so we cannot write anything to students, but we cannot stop them to contact us. And they already know about Red Hat, they already know about hiring process, about our HR, so of course they're contacting Red Hat, and they getting familiar that they have amazing opportunities such as like university internship.
perfect on time.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So-
Thank you.
Welcome back to the Cultural Change and Educational track. So our next speaker is Michael Schlauch. He's a media educator and educational designer, and also a PhD candidate at the in education at the University of Bolzano. He's talking about the dialogue between the free software and educational design research, and his speech is Educational Design Research Entwined. So,
Yes.
Michael.
Thank you very much for having me. Yes, I'm a researcher at the Free University of Bolzano, and I believe I'm actually the only speaker here in this conference from a faculty of education. But I think it's very important to talk about educational technology and free software. And this is, as you can see, very interesting. There's a vignette made about 110 years ago for the Paris World Exhibition. And as you can see on the left, this was how a future classroom would have been imagined at that time. On the right, you see a photo taken for an article of the Washington Post from 2019, so right before the pandemic started. And it depicts an experimental classroom with monitoring headbands. This technology was not only developed in China, but similar projects have been running in Western countries as well. So the interesting thing about both images is that they feature technology which seems somehow magical, somehow impossible. On the left we have information being transferred directly into the brain of the child, and on the right we have the surveillance dream of being able to read the concentration level of children. But both situations don't actually change how children learn. There are still books. So here, there are still books. There is pre-established knowledge. There's a hierarchical system in which children are supposed to collect information someone else chooses for them. They do it alone. Everyone is on his or on their own. They don't have agency over their learning, and you don't see signs of curiosity, autonomy, or discovery happening, which are actually the ways in which most of us got into free software in the first place. So why is it so convenient to develop technology like this? The key problem is that outdated pedagogy is the easiest kind of pedagogy to be replaced by technology. By far, this offers the biggest market and the biggest business opportunities. So why is this relevant for the year 2022? In recent years, we have witnessed remote schooling, and much learning has been transferred into digital spaces. And many technologies have grown with this transfer. Global spending for educational technology is rising, and now we have proprietary learning and management systems being rolled out even in primary schools. The technology to come in future features big data, cloud, artificial intelligence, always powered by the collection of big quantities of data about our children. So what is the potential of free software in this? If business models are incentivizing old learning in new clothing, we have the opportunity to imagine what can be the contribution of research and community-driven development. So there are new opportunities to be discovered for free education, for free software in education. So where can we start? There's much empirical evidence that learning is about connecting knowledge, and that this is facilitated by what the psychologist Jerome Bruner called a narrative mode of thinking. 2 years ago, there has been the 100th birthday of Gianni Rodari, a famous child book author here in Italy, and he also authored a book called The Grammar of Fantasy. In this book, he describes many techniques and methods with which children are encouraged to use their imagination. And they use their imagination in such a way that they can combine creativity and learning and invent new things through storytelling. On the right, we see a seminal work called Hamlet on the Holodeck by Janet Murray. What's striking about this book is that it has been written fairly early in the 90s, but it actually predicted many of the developments of how we interact with digital media today, of what we do with digital devices. And the comparison is once we only had desktop computers, now we have geolocated spatial game experiences, augmented reality, and so on. So what did Janet Murray say in this book? Essentially, she said we have 4 affordances in digital spaces which give us new opportunities of expressive power. And these affordances are the procedural character of being executed by code and algorithms. The digital artifacts are also participatory. The input of users actually changes what's on the screen and determines the result of those interactions. We have an encyclopedic characteristic. That means the possibility to access large quantities of information. Information can be represented in non-linear ways. And last, we have a spatial affordance, the ability to navigate information in many different ways, creating multidimensional spaces that we can immerse ourselves in and have many ways of exploring them. So what are these opportunities then for the new field of interactive digital storytelling in education? There's actually an open source software, a free software, maintained by Chris Klimas, which has already led to a tiny revolution in the realm of independent game development. This tool is called Twine. It's about making narrative games where user decisions influence the narrative. Electronic literature has already been around in the 90s, but it was powered by proprietary software and didn't contain the newest possibilities that web technology now offers to us, like video reproduction. So now Twine actually allows everyone to publish games in a web-ready HTML format. And anybody can do this even without typing in any code. That is optional, as you can see. So what's interesting then for education? We can make different kinds of books. While beforehand we could only render books interactive with these kinds of adventure books, where you had to turn and go to a specific page if you make this or that decision. And on the right we have now the opportunity to program together with children interactive stories. This is, for example, a screenshot of a story made with primary school children. An interactive version of the famous fairy tale made famous by the Brothers Grimm, Hans in Luck. Here Hans has also the possibility to be less generous and to say no to the offers given to him, resulting in different kinds of outcomes. So in the last year, I have conducted an educational design research, developing a tool that enhances Twine and builds on it, which renders storytelling easy for smaller children. This tool is called Fantastinomio, based on a similar idea proposed in the Grammar of Fantasy by Rodari. It's available on GitHub and it's open source. So the main idea is that children choose elements based on their preferences, and the Fantastinomio proposes related story elements to continue that. So one step at a time, a story can be narrated, and after 8 elements, we have a good basis for a story that children can then discuss. The interesting thing is that we can insert into the system different varieties of story elements about different subjects. Children then explore them and learn in a playful manner. So in these pictures we see different situations compared to those in the first 2 pictures I have shown you. Children can collaborate or work individually. The Fantastinomio is multilingual, so children can express themselves in different languages during one storytelling session, and it has actually helped to create stories that then were usable as a basis for many classroom outcomes and subjects. So, what is the participatory design aspect of this? The story elements are inserted by the children in themselves. Here we can see story elements of an intervention that concentrates on social emotional learning. The pictures have been drawn by the children, and this, as we have seen, lends to a much more space for imagination than pictures taken or produced by adults as design products. So we can see on the right side then an online spreadsheet, a relatively easy way, at least in this prototype, where teachers can then insert these kinds of story or elements into the system. So here storytelling happens on more levels. There are potential connections that can be made between all those elements. Learning happens in an interactive way as children learn to interact with a procedural system, and we can offer many different story elements and subjects in many different categories, and children then find their own way of navigating them, generating their own stories about it. So this is my contribution to this big question of how free software can be used to invent new kinds of pedagogy. Thank you very much, and I'm open for questions and comments.
Thank you very much, Michael. Are there questions so far? No questions? I have a question. So you've shown this this spreadsheet. So how does this work actually? Who inserts? Who can insert those kinds of new content? Because it's really interesting seeing the pictures of the kids inside the tool itself, because as you said, it's much more space for imagination. Just looking at those pictures, it's nothing comparing to what an adult would produce, right?
Exactly, yes. Yeah, it's relatively easy to insert those elements. A teacher can then open a spreadsheet which is linked to a particular instance of this Fantastinomio, which is hosted on a server, and then the table essentially says to the Fantastinomio where it can find those image links and the names of all those elements in various languages even, so German, Italian, as it is desired or needed in this space. And then the Fantastinomio adapts to it and takes all those information to generate these story elements.
So the story is basically not only the story they create, but also their own pictures. So
The tool is partially created by
Yeah.
the children.
pretty cool. Okay, so if there are no more questions, thank you very much, Michael. Very interesting.
Thanks.
Okay, so we stop here, and we see then in a few minutes, we see it here again for the next speech. Thanks. Welcome back to the Cultural Change and Education track. So now we have our next speaker here. His name is Charles Schulz. He's a French technologist and free software and open standards advocate, and he's also co-founder of the Document Foundation and LibreOffice. And now he's Chief Strategy Officer at WAITS, exam project. And his speech is about infrastructure should not be about monoculture, because this it's just as bad as monopoly. Flosio.
Thank you. Hey, can everybody hear me? Yes, good. Yes, my name is Charles Schulz. Very glad to be here today. I love Bolzano and I really love SFSCon. It's been a long time since I was not able to participate in person, but this year is a good one. Before I'm gonna discuss a little bit about software and infrastructure and monoculture, I just wanted to introduce WAITS. WAITS is a French open source software vendor. We have started in 2012, so this year we're 10 years old. And we specialized in open source turnkey infrastructure management solution and virtualization. So in a nutshell, we do have two main key products. They're both open source, fully open source, I might add. We have Xen Orchestra, which is a management and orchestration and backup platform for virtual environments based on Xen. And XCP-ng, which is it's a fully open source hypervisor based on Xen, and that is itself part of the Linux Foundation Xen project. You should give it a try. We only get very good feedback, and yeah, you should definitely take a look at it. Now, why am I today talking to you and telling you about monoculture and software monoculture? Let's just try to kind of wrap our minds around what it could mean. Well, let's just start with this, really. Couldn't help, of course. What you see here is you take a vendor that everybody knows about. I'm not making any judgment here, but I'm just going to say, here's everything you're going to end up using when you're using one of their tools. In fact, you will soon realize, if you haven't already, that you can't really use any one of these tools separately without kind of using at least another one and at least another one, and that other one is going to lead to another one, etc., etc., etc. So that's a type of monoculture, you know. Certainly, some of you might say, oh, but that's not necessarily the same technologies. Granted, Azure is different from, say, SharePoint. Yes, that's not the same thing, but they certainly are tying very well together, and together they do form a unified stack. Let's take a look at a different perspective. I just put that there if you're wondering what that is. That is the list of the most important Amazon AWS services out there. There are others, but these are, I think, the 20 most important ones. Why am I showing you this? Not trying to pitch AWS here, but just, I mean, you know, my company does things also with AWS, that's not a problem. But just to let you know, this is the same kind of issue. There's a stickiness to this, and most important of all, what you see here is a monoculture. Once you're in, well, you're going to slowly be using other things and other things and other things because it's convenient, let's face it. But also, what it creates is a one technological standpoint, a one way to do things, a one way to think about, let's say here, how you're going to use public cloud infrastructure. But you could have other examples. You have platform monoculture. Ouch. We're all on GitHub, aren't we all? We're on GitHub. WAITS is on GitHub, at least some of it. Facebook, GitLab, Twitter. Well, you see, the problem with that is, in a sense, you have different names here, but these are also type of monoculture. There are silos, And when they do not present or come across as silos, they certainly are, in fact, silos in that they have created on the market, because of their user base, a kind of vendor lock-in, some form of lock-in. And in the end, it does have practical implication, on how we actually experience innovation, how we can see the growth of our communities, because they essentially are tied and connected very squarely to the tools or the platforms that they're using. Now, we're here at the SFSCon, and there's literally software freedom, so free software that is part of the name of the conference. And so you might think, but wait a minute, he's not talking about free software. Well, monoculture and software monoculture spans across different type of software, whether it is proprietary software or if it is free and open source software. I showed you a few examples before. AWS certainly has a lot of open source software. GitHub may not be free software or open source software itself, but certainly is the home of a lot of open source software projects. Now, my point here is monoculture is not about licensing. It's not about software licenses. It's not about whether you like copyleft, non-copyleft, what have you. It has nothing to do with that. It literally is about a culture. It literally is about transforming entire communities and ecosystems into communities and ecosystems that are unable or disabled to, and then hindered to do what they would like to do next, because they are trapped by a platform. They're trapped because they're excluded from a dominant software stack that goes way beyond a market domination or market dominance or a position in the ecosystem. It reaches the point where how people do things, how developer work, how developer think, is ultimately directly influenced by that monoculture. Now, monoculture, as I said, in the end reduces choices, innovations, and freedom. But what is very important to understand, and this is one of my key messages today, is that we're talking here about culture. So we're talking about something which is very subtle. And by being very subtle, what I'm saying here is that kind of domination, that kind of influence, if you will, is a cultural influence, and it's going to ultimately affect how we even develop free software, how we're going to develop, and how we're going to innovate. I've spent about 20 years, well, less than that really, in the free and open source software productivity suite environments. It's great years, great communities, great people. But you know what? When you're going to talk to the outside world, people, they will actually think in terms of, well, the monoculture that's out there. They're going to think in terms of features. They're going to think in terms of needs. And we, the free and open source software productivity suite, the LibreOffice project, we think in the same terms because we are ultimately influenced as well in that. Let me give you a good example of that everybody knows about. I'm sure you've all heard and you've all used a tool called PowerPoint. All those concept of slides that I'm using right now. So you do slides and doing a presentation. Well, that is a monoculture. It's not so much a monoculture in terms of product. I've used LibreOffice Impress to do those things. There are other tools to do those things. But ultimately, it's the concept of using them that way. What tells you is that the best way to convey an idea? Couldn't we think about different tools, different approaches to deliver presentations or keynotes or speeches? You see, this is how culture ultimately influences an entire market from the very beginning of the offer generation to the demand and the reception, the perception of the product and the software. If we go back to a more technological standpoint, there's also something which is a problem that's generated by monoculture. It is essentially that legacy becomes completely acceptable. Now, here I'm not going to be talking about legacy as it is experienced from a user point of view, because software legacy and technological debts and problems in the existing infrastructure and the existing deployments at any company or organization, that's just part of life. But here I'm going to talk about from a software development perspective. Monoculture ultimately leads to the acceptation of legacy because, well, that's how things are done, essentially. And what you would not accept from anybody else, from any other tools, from any other platform, you're still going to have to deal with it in the context of a software domination and monoculture. When it comes to infrastructure, a place I know well and that Vates know well, there is another challenge here, which is that if you basically are subjected to monoculture and market domination within a software infrastructure and, such like cloud infrastructure, if you will, you're going to have other issues. Sometimes they are much bigger than your own person or your own project. In fact, they can lead to problems and challenges for digital sovereignty. If all you know is how to use, let's say, AWS or public cloud, then it means that you as a country or you as a large organization cannot go beyond that. You can't even port your entire information system away from that player to another one. In fact, because you wouldn't really know how to map out the different services and the different tools that you need to actually effectively go out of that platform. And so this is also a very big problem, and is a problem which is experienced every day now by a lot of companies and organizations. So to end this, a few ideas. I think, as I said, I insisted about the notion of culture today. Then a great way on how to reshape culture is by education. That is true completely outside of the software world, but that is still true inside the software world. We need to make technical training and development courses at the university in computer science less about products and more about technology. Now, I know that there are great places such as here that do this, but it is very important to continue and expand this concept. Enterprise adoption, and even though that is still a long way to go, but still should be more about resilience and performance and less about the cognitive unconscious biases and the social compliance mechanisms that you can see. I'm going to get VMware. Why? I'm going to get VMware. Why? Because everybody's got VMware. Okay. I got a MacBook. Why? You don't know why. There's no real need. But it is about social compliance, ultimately, most of the time. And then innovation, and here, especially in Europe, innovation we're good in Europe when it comes to fostering innovation at the university level, at the very upstart level. But when it comes to the actual demand and the demand generation, we're not so good. We're not so good for a variety of policy reasons, but also cultural and psychological reasons, and we should be working on that. Thank you. Thank you. If you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Charles. Very great. Are there questions? The question so far? So I have a question.
Sure.
Those companies that have those platforms or
Yeah.
this ecosystem of a lot of services, they are very good on creating, let's say, offer in the low level, let's say the primary schools, and so making them incentives for using their project, getting the
Right.
students to use them, offering free Gmail service for universities and stuff. So to have this,
Yeah.
to grab all this, how do you evaluate that?
So this is a very real problem too. I didn't discuss that, but yes, they are very keen on essentially delivering their technology and their tools to schools, so from the very beginning. And that has nothing to do with trying to establish itself on the education market. I mean, in sheer terms for them, it means nothing if you, like in pure market terms. but what it is about is to create the culture, is to plant the seeds that this is how you use an email, this is how it looks like, and this is how you're going to be using a word processor, and this is how it looks like, etc., etc.
Yeah, because people get used to this
exactly.
product. And
Exactly. I think that this is an issue that would be tackled very easily if the education procurement systems were a lot more stringent on these kind of things. My experience is that while you will find teachers who are quite aware of this, you will not find at the education, let's say, procurement level in these education entities or organization, you will not find the same awareness.
so who
Unfortunately.
decides the rules on how procurement
Exactly.
is made?
Yeah.
They-
Exactly.
so-
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you.
So
Thank you, Ray.
see you in a few minutes for the next speech. Thanks. introduction and then.
Thank you.
So, welcome back to the cultural change and educational track. And now we have our next speaker here. She's Alexandra Irina Nikolai.
Yeah.
I spelled it right. She's from the Axel Springer National Media and Tech GmbH and ideas in the ideas engineering section. So, her speech is about 4 easy steps on how to pitch anything. We're curious.
Right.
So it's yours.
Thank you. Hi and welcome. And good morning, by the way. My name is Alex, and I'm going to teach you today how to pitch basically anything in 4 steps. And why do I do that? No, we leave that as a cliffhanger for the ending. About us. Usually, you do a small introduction about where you're coming from and why you're talking about this whole thing. So Axel Springer Ideas Engineering, or Axel Springer National Media and Tech, and there's specifically the section that I'm with, we're the tech branch of the biggest publisher in Europe. And so we have lots of people that work with us and that who have ideas. So what we did is we opened up a section, and basically in the past, we just became 10 years old. We just turned 10 years old the other day, like the previous speaker. He was also with the company 10 years old. But the section that I am with, Ideas Engineering, just turned 10 years old. So we've been talking about ideas for the past 10 years. And what we do is we take those ideas, we turn them into services, we turn them into prototypes, and we show them then to our brands in order to, give them the opportunity to grow. To the editorial teams. So we're used to handling and juggling those ideas all day long. And since we're good at prototyping and building services, but we're not that good with turning the prototypes into products, a little story time about me, how I went to Silicon Valley to find out how other big companies do that, because you cannot know anything or everything in the world. Anything is a different thing. So I did some research. I went to Silicon Valley with one of our people and culture projects that we have, and looked into how other companies juggled their ideas, juggled their processes from going from idea then to a product in the end. For instance, with Amazon, also something that the previous speaker was talking about. And how do they empower their employees, their colleagues, to actually talk about what they have in mind? Because we have lots of people that stop talking about their ideas as soon as they enter a room because they are afraid of speaking up. And so, meanwhile, while I was having fun in Silicon Valley and doing my research, and yes, the weather was amazing, we had colleagues in Berlin sitting there and thinking about a framework and how to open up what we've been doing at Ideas Engineering, talking about our ideas to all of Axel Springer, to the bigger corporation. And when I got back, we founded what we call now the Ideation Council, a place where you can come and pitch your idea and people will listen to you. And because this is important to give people an audience, to give people the floor, I came to Bolzano, from Berlin to Bolzano, to tell you about that as well, because I think this is important, verbalizing your ideas. This is Vincent. He brought his idea to the Ideation Council, and we teach people at Axel Springer to do that, like I said. We give them 3 gates to ensure maximum support and to qualify each idea. Because sometimes you have this thing in mind, but you don't know how to formulate it, and this is what basically the judges then look upon to. So we have a group of judges where the board is part of it. We have product colleagues, development colleagues, data colleagues, looking on top of this idea and giving you then either a go or a no-go, and within this rotational membership of those judges, we try to look at the value of each idea and give them either a pass or not to their ideas. This is why it's important to qualify each idea and to help them learn pitching. And by we, I mean 4 people. So we are, at this point, we're 4 people. We have 2 innovation engineers dealing then afterwards with the ideas, doing the prototyping. We have, and Sebastian and myself, we're running around the company and helping finding those ideas and then teaching the people how to do that. And now for the important part. This is why you're here. 4 steps. It's really simple. Why? Because I found it in the internet, and the internet is always right, right? Is it? Tell them about inspiration, gather information, tell them what the impediment is, and tell them what the impact will be. And yes, it is as simple as that. You usually have an inspiration, like for instance, grumpy people in the morning, those 3. When you ask them why are you grumpy, or you try to solve the grumpiness problem, what is your idea going to solve? What problem are you going to solve? Try to focus on that and write a few sentences about it. Is it going to be awesome because whatever, you're trying to solve a certain issue or to save the planet or whatever it is, tell them about your inspiration. And the more personal you make it and the better the story, the more interested people will listen to you then about this idea. But do your homework. Gather information on why this will have some impact. What is it what you're trying to solve, and give them some information on that, because just telling them, well, there is this problem and I want to solve it, full stop, will not bring you then to the point where you will win the pitch. But if you sit down and think about what the information is that they will need in order to gain trust, to gather trust, they will see that you did your homework. So for instance, the numbers show that I will have success with this idea because of this and that. So for instance, we know that grumpy people, usually when you put up a coffee station like in here, eventually they will ungrumpy by lunchtime, whatever. So we know coffee does something to people. And then tell them what the impediment is as well, because this is also part of how you tell people to, of how you teach people to have trust in you. Because if you tell them what the issue is, so I want to build this huge thing, but the problem is I don't have any information about statics. I don't have any idea about architecture, but I know I want to build this thing. Tell them what the impediment is. I will need help with this and that. Why aren't we doing it already? Oh, we did it in the past, but we failed because of this and that. Because usually when you tell them what the problem is with something that they tried to solve already in the past, specifically also in larger corporations, then they will gain trust with you. They will have trust that you did your homework and that you know exactly what you need in order to achieve your goal, to pitch your idea. And then tell them what the impact is, from grumpiness to happiness, in this case. Tell them what exactly is this really interesting thing that you want to build, and the impact will be amazing because of X, Y, Z. They need to hear that, and you need to be very enthusiastic about that as well. Sorry, it's still in the morning. I had just 1 coffee at this point. Not there yet. A little story to those pictures. Do I still have time? I do have a few minutes left. So what we built in order to go from here, grumpy people, to there was, for instance, we found out that people, like I said, coffee helps, and maybe a joke could help on the way as well. And Tarek, one of my colleagues, the innovation engineer, one of the innovation engineers, had this idea because he juggled around beforehand with a few tools and with software. He had the idea to, you go to the coffee machine and you take your coffee from it, but what if the coffee machine could actually recognize your face, the grumpiness level of it, like more frowning, less frowning, being happy, and tell you a joke in case you're frowning. And that's what we did. We put an image recognition a camera on top of our coffee machine, image recognition, see how the faces react, and then tell them a Chuck Norris joke. Because you know what? Chuck Norris doesn't sleep. He waits. And when you start your day with coffee and Chuck Norris, it's eventually gonna be a perfect day in the end of the day, because stupid jokes help to like keep up the mood and help. This is what he pitched, and yes, he did it in this simple manner, because he told you from the grumpiness level, I want to bring them via coffee and jokes and a coffee machine. And yeah, I know we have those impediments, but I took care of it because of this and that. And then eventually they smiled. And that's true people that I work with. So yeah, we know it works. But in case you don't have the time to sit in and listen to a 15 minutes pitch or 10 minutes pitch or even the 60-second elevator pitch, which personally I don't like, because it's not too long, not too short, you don't know exactly what to tell when you're squeezed in this thing together with the board members or whomever you're afraid of. Try to go for a pitch in one sentence. That would be plan B. Take a known concept like, for instance, Netflix, and tell them, well, it's like Netflix, but just without or with NFT and cats and VR. You know? Did you get what I'm trying to pitch? No, obviously not, because I didn't prepare that. But you know, in case you panic, take a known concept and tell them about the known concept and squeeze it in one sentence. Keep it, I don't know, be under your pillow, whatever, but if you start keeping that in mind in one sentence, at least when you panic, you have this one sentence in mind. Thank you. Questions?
Great. So I think we all learned a lot of now in this 15 minutes. Other questions? So everything clear. Everybody knows now how to do their pitches.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
I hope you pitch a lot.
Okay. So we see each other in a couple of seconds, a couple of minutes for the next speech. Thank you. So, welcome back to the Cultural Change and Educational track. Our next speech is with more than one speaker. So, we do welcome Anton Auer from the School Swap Initiative, Maria Pia Ermelina from the Boscardin Art School in Vicenza. Then we have Paolo Dongili, he's a technical inspector at the Italian School Board and FOSS coordinator. And then we have Karl Lunger, he's a teacher at the TFO at Bolzano. And they are presenting an identikit of a cloud for learners. So welcome to everybody, floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi everybody, my name is Paolo. We decided to get together in order to present to all of you an idea that we have in from different points of views of how a cloud for learners should look like. So the first one of us is Anton Auer, that is going to present with the video he sent because he's unfortunately blocked at home, and he will be the first one to share with you his thoughts. So I ask the registrar please to send the video. Thanks so much.
Hello, I'm in quarantine and now I'll try to show you a couple of slides, asking you to keep them and later on taking your time to look at them and be curious to find out about what is shown in there. Starting with one question put by Harald Welzer. The question is, who decided that someone can take my data? Chi ha deciso che qualcuno può appropriarsi dei miei dati? A very good question. It remembered me modern times of Charlie Chaplin, who described the life then. Just to remember. And now, is that the life we want? Should we go on like that? No, I would prefer an idea like this. Digital humanity working together. Some scientists is that in modern times of today, we have a problem. Shoshana Zuboff gave that problem the name surveillance capitalism. And another fine intellectual, Evgeny Morozov, spoke about data capitalism. And when he met Francesca Bria, perhaps you remember her, she was working in Barcelona for Democratic Internet. When they came together, Morozov, from an intellectual, became an activist for digital democracy. So, the next slide shows Geza Lindemann. She's fearing that we in Europe are risking to end up in a digital colony. Not very nice. So, what can we do about it? There are the Millennium Goals for Sustainable Development all over the world, and governments spend a lot of money for these goals. But one goal is missing, the topic democratic digital ecology. So, without this goal, very little money is spent on it. That has to be changed. About that missing goal, two powers in the world are for sure happy. GAFAM in the West, GAMAM we can call it, and the Communist Party of China in the East. But we Europeans are right in the middle, and we have a chance to do something new. IT technology has all the elements needed to build an internet based on decentralized instruments, on federated structures who are democratically data sovereign. So let's start saying we have to learn digital anew, and for that we need more public money for more public code in the educational system. I feel that if we are able to get support from parents who are worried about their children's future and the creativity of youngsters, then we can succeed. And so I call upon you, experts at SFSCon, please listen to parents and listen to youngsters and support them with your technical expertise.
Buongiorno a tutti, sono Maria Pia dell'Armellina e sono un'insegnante di un liceo artistico di Vicenza e sono impegnata soprattutto a fare didattica usando il software libero. Parlerò dell'identità del cloud ponendo l'attenzione su con alcune riflessioni di carattere generale. Per esempio il cloud come chiave di trasformazione digitale. È indubbio che il cloud come soluzione tecnologica ha portato dei grandi vantaggi, soprattutto nel mondo della scuola, perché ha sganciato un po' la didattica da alcuni problemi tecnici. Nel mondo della scuola soprattutto siamo carenti di figure di tecnico-informatiche e quando dovevamo fare comunque didattica usando il digitale perdevamo più tempo a fare funzionare i dispositivi, i programmi, che a fare didattica. In questo caso lo studente si collega subito con l'applicazione accedendo alla rete e anche può svolgere il suo lavoro in forma collaborativa e condivisa, mentre col software in locale questo era più difficile. Vediamo che anche da un punto di vista più generale anche le imprese sono facilitate dall'utilizzo del cloud perché hanno un'ottimizzazione dell'organizzazione interna e anche una riduzione dei costi di gestione. E anche nel piano dell'aggiornamento triennale dell'informatica 21-23 viene consigliato il cloud come cloud first, come soluzione per rendere più efficace la pubblica amministrazione. Però qui viene la domanda importante, ma il cloud garantisce ancora le 4 libertà di Richard Stallman? Sicuramente con un po' di difficoltà. Perché comunque l'uso dei programmi avviene attraverso un server di altri e l'utente non ha un pieno controllo attraverso i servizi, attraverso la SaaS dei servizi che usa. E per questo si consiglia, se si volesse comunque sviluppare delle web app, di adottare la licenza GNU Affero GPL, che è la simile alla GPL, però è fatta apposta per i servizi in rete. Un altro tipo di riflessione riguarda il cloud come vettore culturale del software libero. In che senso? Da un'indagine condotta da Wikimedia Italia, che è un'associazione che sostiene il progetto Wikipedia nel 2019, è emerso dal campione degli utenti intervistati che quasi nessuno o pochi conoscono il significato di termini come software libero, open data, Creative Commons. E questo ci fa capire come anche così il senso comune, la maggioranza degli utenti consuma solo i prodotti digitali e conosce poco invece la questione concernente i diritti di utilizzo, le licenze di copyright e copyleft. A questa, scarsa conoscenza in generale di termini che fanno riferimento alla libertà digitale e ai contenuti liberi si associano anche dei pregiudizi. Per esempio io insegno una scuola del liceo artistico e tendenzialmente si comprano programmi, la suite di Adobe per la grafica unita ai Mac perché si pensa ancora che siano coppiata vincente e così anche le aziende. Però in realtà per una didattica digitale anche programmi liberi equivalenti come Inkscape, GIMP o Scribus si adattano molto bene a spiegare non tanto il programma, ma quali sono i meccanismi che sottendono poi ai tipi diversi di programmi di grafica, dai raster ai vettoriali. Non dimentichiamo inoltre che ci sono programmi come Krita e Blender che sono sostenuti da una forte community, che sono anche programmi che non sono poco efficaci o poco efficienti, ma anzi offrono grande funzionalità e sono molto performanti. E per quanto riguarda il cloud, sarebbe auspicabile che il MIUR in Italia adottasse Moodle, che è una piattaforma che è sostenuta anche questa da una grossa comunità da più di 20 anni e che è nata per l'ambiente, per la formazione e consente anche una didattica molto più approfondita per quanto riguarda l'interazione con le classi, perché con Google Classroom, che è in uso particolarmente in molte scuole d'Italia e anche hanno la piattaforma di Microsoft, hai delle funzionalità un po' limitate, puoi fare una classe, mentre con Moodle hai, come dire, la possibilità proprio di personalizzare anche le attività in maniera più approfondita. E questo in generale, se per esempio anche a livello di cloud si adottasse Moodle, anche la percezione a livello culturale che si ha dei contenuti liberi sicuramente, insomma, ne trarrebbe vantaggio. E infine il cloud come prevenzione al consumismo digitale, cioè formare i cittadini digitali. In che senso? Quotidianamente noi, quando usiamo la rete, usiamo dei servizi, dal fare le foto su Instagram a caricare documenti eccetera, però contemporaneamente anche noi lasciamo i nostri dati che poi vengono profilati per esigenze di mercato, e in questo senso anche l'atteggiamento mentale che induce il cloud è un po' quello di un pregiudizio di conferma, cioè diciamo che ci porta a fare delle scelte in maniera intuitiva e veloce, un po' basato sull'onda dell'istinto più che sull'onda di un pensiero critico. E in questo senso il cloud, sì, ho finito, il cloud dovrebbe, come dire, attraverso la scuola, attraverso la media education, dovrebbe indurre ad acquisire quelle competenze digitali per fare delle scelte appunto più critiche, e il cloud dovrebbe adottare i principi del software libero per garantire anche una corretta formazione del cittadino.
And now we see a little meme that is in internet. What is cloud? Cloud is other people's computers, and when we use cloud, we use storage and application on other people's computers. And in the school, what we do, we storage data, and thousands of years ago, we have testimonial on tables, and after thousands of years, we can read it. In the school, we use a special cloud, the Blackboard or the Whiteboard, and we can share data on in the class. The first computers in our schools are in the 18th. Some single computers without network and without internet and without cloud and without problems. In the 19th are more computers, the first internet and first application like email, but not was cloud. In the new millennium, more computers and services like e-learning, like email, and services like e-learning we can compare with cloud solutions or use it on clouds. And now, after a lot of years, we have services like cloud on Microsoft, Google, and solutions that are free in the Italian school.
Our idea of cloud is a cloud that respects these points here. First of all, it has to be sustainable. So based on free software and using open standard formats and protocols. It has to be interoperable. It has to be accountable. This means it has to be verifiable by everybody. It has to be sovereign, which means that the cloud, everyone using that knows exactly where data are and where data are stored. And of course, GDPR compliant. Now, try to think if clouds, solutions used by schools nowadays from big tech respect these points here. So this is a nice exercise. So what happened during the pandemic period? What is written here? So typically schools bought solutions, or governments bought solutions from the GAFAM group. And the problem is that DPAs, so data protection authorities took maybe too much time to realize that schools were really in a bad situation and in danger. So these are the typical articles you read on the news in the past months of problems we had in Denmark, Baden-Württemberg, where these GAFAM solutions were blocked. A solution proposed by Catalonia and the city of Barcelona, in particular from the XNet group. And the nice thing is that this was also proposed by families. They made a group together with companies, and they proposed a way of this digitalization which is democratic, and they call the project democratic digitalization of education. What they proposed are technologies that we all know. Every one of us probably used one of these technology, but what they propose is to merge these together. And they asked other institutions, Denmark, France, Germany, Italy, and all countries of Europe to participate to make this product and this merge of technologies much better. So this is what they're asking. We had Simona Levi, who is the founder of XNet. We had her as a speaker at the Linux Day that the Linux User Group Bolzano organized this year. And she described this project. And what I really ask, echoing what she said, and she asked us, please go to this website on GitLab, take a look at the project, at the beautiful documentation that they provided, and help this project go on in a way that we can have a cloud in Europe which is really sovereign, interoperable, and sustainable. Thanks so much.
Okay, so thank you very much. We are already over time, but the next speaker is not here, so I think we have space for one question. We need a microphone.
Ecco, grazie, farò la domanda in italiano, così...
Can you speak in English, please?
Okay, so the question will be in English. And the question is, why in Italy we missed the COVID-19 as an opportunity to use the same technology across all schools and to use open source technology to produce in virtual classroom or stuff like that?
Unfortunately, COVID was an opportunity to, first of all, in terms of helping schools and teachers to get closer to digital technologies. And this, of course, helped it. I say unfortunately because everybody would have passed that period in another way. That helped a lot, but that didn't help, as Maria Pia said, teachers to really understand how, for example, a cloud or technologies we use at school should really be. Remember the points I showed you before. Those are the points that should be respected by technologies. And government should follow those points for technologies that are proposed to schools and to digital administrations. And this is not done. Even here in Italy, where we have a very strict legislation in terms of how software should be acquired and how software should be reused among public administrations.
Okay, thank you very much.
say that in France it was different. You know, France pushed.
Can you use the microphone? Thank you.
But in France, the government pushed free software solutions for the schools. Organized a website for coordinating this software and the adoption of the software by the schools. So maybe there is no sufficient sensibility in the authorities from this point of view in Italy. Unfortunately, I think we should make an effort to provide this kind of sensibility towards the authorities.
Yeah, I think that associations and Linux user groups all over Italy, as they're discussing now, should be really very helpful in doing this from a territory point of view, and being able to be really close to people, parents, teachers, and citizens in general. Yes.
All right, so we have to close the session here. If you want to keep discussing, no problem, because as said, the next speaker is not here, so you can use the room, you can stay here and continue discussion. Thank you very much, and
thank you.
Test, test. Okay. That's it. So, welcome back to the Cultural Change and Educational track. Our next speaker is Atuala Buriro. He's assistant professor at the Faculty of Computer Science at the University of Bolzano. And he explains how authentication scheme based on something the user knows is not enough. So his talk is about behavioral biometrics-based identity verification for new generation of devices. So, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the invitation. Hello everyone, my name is Ataullah Buriro, and today I'm talking about a new ways of authentication. I expect you all know about authentication. Bravo, very good. So, yeah. Okay, who is she? Who is she? You don't know? Bravo. Giorgia Meloni, how would you know? Actually, this is the question related to identity. Okay, we are identified by our faces. We are identified by our walking style. We are identified by the document we carry, for example, this badge. Okay, we are identified by our cards that we have, the tokens we call them. So there are plenty of mechanisms available in the market to identify. But how would you relate this identification to authentication? What is authentication then? Authentication is something, for example, that proves the identity of the claimant who is claiming. Let's say I'm claiming I'm Ataullah Buriro. How will you verify my identity? Of course, you will ask me to provide you some document. And from the document showing the image, for example, you will see my image, like the passport we give at airports, for example, we are identified. So this one is Giorgia Meloni, Mark Zuckerberg, of course. Everyone knows about him, no need to tell. And this is the mechanism. So these are all mechanisms that are used to identify people. Also, this one is interesting. You know, I have seen in movies when these agents need to identify each other, they share the secret code, which is very, very important. So it's now well defined that these are the mechanisms we use to identify people. Also, we identify or authenticate people based on the voice as well, which is not here. So, sorry. Now, here, smartphones, smart devices. Who doesn't own smartphone? Everyone. Smartwatch, tablets, these are all smart devices. Now, these smart devices also identify or authenticate us based on the way we authenticate people, right? So, like for example, your phone could ask you about your secret PIN. Don't say your secret PIN is 1234. So it could ask you, and then it could ask you about your face. You are supposed to provide the face image in order to get authenticated. And you have fingerprint recognition system as well to identify, to authenticate you on your own devices. The question is, why even this authentication is important? Why is it important? So, we are trying to find, for example, let's try to agree on something. Do any of you use social networking, social sites from phone? Everyone. Okay, and do you do online transactions? Quite folks. Okay, so there are so many applications available for these smart devices that generate and store a lot of personal data. This personal data needs to be secured. If it's not secured, it will result in identity theft, I will talk about later. So, existing authentication mechanisms are knowledge-based. Okay, knowledge-based means you are required to memorize some secret. Could be 1, 2, 3, 4. Could be a pattern, you see here, for example. It could be anything, but you have to memorize this, okay? So here is a trade-off. Complex password, difficult to remember. Easier password, easy to attack. What are we supposed to do then? So, question is, are they secure? The knowledge-based mechanisms that we are using, are they secure? No. Why? Because you see, we are using our devices in public places with a lot of eyes at our phones, for example, at our devices. So this could be a problem. And for those who use pins and passwords, don't say you have a pin of 1, 2, 3, 4 on your phone. And if it is, you are not alone, because this database, out of 2 million users' passwords, 1, 2, 3, 4 was the most frequent one. 10% of the users had 1, 2, 3, 4 as password. And this is, by the way, in 2022, also this holds true. Now, and this pattern, for example, you see here, people tend to use simple patterns, crossing each other, intersecting each other, which is also very easy to remember, but easy to attack as well. And also, like with these sketches, for example, you leave some smudges, some traces on your phone, which an attacker can exploit. Then we have other solutions. Why should we use these classical solutions? We have face recognition system, Android Smart Lock. Okay, it identifies, it authenticates person based on the facial attributes that you have. Then, but who is this guy, by the way? Is it Obama or Osama? Come on, I have only 15 minutes. Very difficult, because face recognition is vulnerable to attacks. Fine. And also, like here you see, also face recognition is being attacked. And it's very easy, because it's very easy for me to find the face of a targeted person. Very easy. Because we leave our data everywhere, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, everywhere. So, question is, are they secure? Fingerprint, face recognition, this is called biometric category. Are they secure? Somehow, yes, but this Touch ID, I'm giving you a reference, there is a lab called Chaos Lab in Germany. They have successfully attacked, they were able to successfully attack iPhone 5S and 6S touch sensors on the second day of its release. So, fingerprint recognition is vulnerable. Also, with this, all these problems, for example, the main consequence of all this, if you have simple mechanism on your phone or device, and you are using online transactions and everything, the consequence is very, very hard. If it's stolen by a person, or if you lost your phone somewhere. So identity theft is actually among the top 5 complaints in the world. So identity theft is not, you can just say, for example, I am a young guy, I don't have anything on my phone that needs to be secured. And this identity theft is common across all age groups, especially the teenage, for example. 54% of teenage users up to the age of 40, they are more vulnerable because they are sloppy. Then they leave very, emotional and financial consequences. Very, very difficult to get away with this. Are they usable? Besides security, I'm asking, are they usable? So how do users feel when they use their devices? An average person, for example, an average IT person opens or wants to access his device every 6.5 seconds. We access this device 150 times a day, 24 hours. So every 6.5 seconds, and you give like at least 3-4 seconds you take to take a very nice selfie to get authenticated in public places. I'm in a meeting, okay, let me take the selfie. No, it doesn't work like this. So there is a very famous pointer which says, it feels like I'm taking selfies all day, okay? And also like, imagine taking selfie on day on Fujisto device, for example, takes 15 to 20 seconds. Imagine on smart watch, for example, which is already available in the market, how difficult it would be to unlock it from the watch, from the wrist. So, is there any alternate? Don't you think we need something that is accurate, that is secure, that is usable, that is better than all these algorithms? I'm not claiming that they will be, I don't want to be assertive, they will not be more secure, for example, but still I'm saying, for example, there is a room for another modality, another alternate to come up. So there exists a new approach called behavioral biometrics. The way you walk is a behavioral biometric. The way you speak is behavioral biometric. You can identify me based on my voice, okay? You can, like could be, like the way I write something, you can identify me based on the writing style, okay? All these are biometric modalities. No, they are advantageous. Everyone has unique movements. On the phone, for example, you can say, for example, this watch, if you see this solution, I call it snap out. And here, for example, you do just the snapping, and with this snapping, This watch actually authenticates you. Just the snapping. 2 seconds of micro movements that no one is able to capture, trust me, and no one is able to mimic. Very, very interesting. And then you have, for example, clapping. So these two solutions could well be used for, in real estate settings. For example, if you want to unlock a secure infrastructure, you do this, smartwatch will collect all your movements, send the signal to the server will authenticate you. You are not required to bring your card to get in. Okay? Keystroke dynamics. It's not about what you write, no, it's about how you write. So these are all behaviors. Signature. From the signature, I say this is the signature of Barack Obama. So this is not new field actually. There are plenty of solutions available, but for smartphones and smart devices, not many. And do you think they will require additional hardware? No. The built-in hardware that are already there, they are sufficient enough. Accelerometer, gyroscope, magnetometer, they are sufficient enough to model those movements. Okay. Now, I want to show you, I want to point you to a paper that I wrote like 5 years ago. How you hold your phone and how you write something on your phone. These are two modalities, biometric modality. One, you hold your phone and you write and writing means, here for example, this writing captures the touch, the value of pixel on that screen, you know. It's very, very difficult for you to write exactly the way I wrote. And this paper is already published. You could have a look at it if you want. Then there is a dialer auth. So dialing, who doesn't know dialing? You need to enter number and dial, you know. So this is the way, for example, it's also a bimodal system. So the way you dial, while holding your phone, these are two different attributes. You can actually identify a person. Also very important, the way you bring your phone to your ear is also novel. And here, snapping auth, I already showed you. Very simple, snapping, 2 seconds of data with just 2 seconds of micro movements of your arm, you will be able to identify, to get authenticated. And then here, clapping auth. Secure infrastructure. I want to come to Noi, for example, and I want to access a secure infrastructure. I am not required to bring my card to show them that I belong to this place, no. So, just a small acknowledgement. He's Professor Bruno Crespo. I am indebted to him. I acknowledge all the support, effort, and collaboration of these guys. He's Professor Francesco Ricci. I'm working with him now. This guy was my colleague working with me at University of Trento. And this guy, I salute him because he was always there to test my application. And my collaborators, he's a professor at Polytechnic University, New York, and Konrad Varuna, he's our collaborator from NATO. He's a principal scientist at NATO. Thank you very much for your attention. Before going, I still have 20 seconds left. Before leaving, I have one of the solution here as a demo. If any one of you is interested, he can test. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We have room for a questioning case. Does anyone have a question?
My question.
Go ahead.
My question is, if technology is not the issue of bringing this technology, what is the problem?
Problem here, for example?
The bringing this technology. You said in the beginning that all of the authentication method that we use have some sort of fault.
Some sort of problems, yes.
Okay.
And I got your point. Tell me if I'm wrong. So you are saying why their deployment is still awaited? Why are not they there, for example? They are very, very close, very, very close, in fact. So Google is also working on something, building up a trust API, for example, which will authenticate person from keystroke dynamics. They are working on it. And there is another company from Bitium Mobile, for example, from Finland. They are also trying to implement this on I have an offer from OnePlus, the third most, probably largest company in the world making mobile phones. They are also interested in this research, for example, how to authenticate. The point here is, for example, these companies, they require accuracy, 99% accuracy, for example, okay? They don't take into account, for example, mimicking or taking or all these things. They want accuracy. Now the problem is, for behavioral biometrics to be that much accurate, that much secure, for example, you are required to train them well, train the classifiers well, okay? So here, for example, if I ask you to participate in one of my experiments, how much time could you sacrifice for the experiment? Do you have some time? How much? So if I ask you to provide me 1,000 samples, would you mind doing this? The point is, in behavioral biometrics, because there is a large variance in the data set, you have to, to provide enough samples to the classifier to train, to learn well. And as an individual, I cannot do this. Companies, yes. And probably, who knows, in next year's SFSCon, probably I'll be presenting one of my product from a company platform. Who knows? Thank you so much for the question, Michael.
All right, thank you very much. So, who's interested in the test, the demo?
Yeah.
So we have to stop the speech here now, but maybe outside we can look at the demo. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
So, see you in a couple of minutes. All right, welcome back to the Cultural Change and Educational Track. So we have our next speaker here. His name is Diego Braga. He's a product owner at Crateo Platform Ops, and he is telling us why the platform team must shift to a product-driven mentality. So, fantastic platform teams and where to find them. Welcome.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So welcome to the talk. The aim of this talk is to explain you why nowadays DevOps is a methodology that is already old, okay? And we need to transition to the next step. So we need to find out how to build platform teams that are the new organization that can implement this new methodology. And why we need to do this shifting? Because I love to bring this sentence from Gartner that says that by 2025, basically all the enterprise companies will fail their DevOps initiatives if we don't adopt self-service platforms. Because what is a platform? I mean, what is the problem nowadays? So I will give you a couple of terms, a couple of definitions, and then we can understand how we can put on the field this concept. So a platform, in the most common definition, is a span of technologies that are brought by different engineering teams. And this platform can be made of tools for telemetry, application delivery, programmatical network, container orchestrators like Kubernetes, continuous integration, continuous deployment, etc. So in a broader sense, a platform is something that enables your company to do your business and do it faster and do it in a more safe way. And to do this, we need a transition also in the organization. So we are used to talk with infrastructure and operation guys that need to do a shift to a platform team and a platform that is a product. So you use a product if it's nice to use, if it's user-friendly, if your users are happy to interact with it. So a lot of infrastructure operation guys don't understand this, that their work is to build up a platform that is useful for the company. Okay, so just put some boundaries in place, understand that your platform is a product, and you need to work as a product to be a consistent and to be a solid platform to offer to your users that can interact with the platform in a self-service way. So self-service means that your product can scale. Your developers don't need to expect you for a meeting, for an email. You don't need to open a ticket. You can bring your own service within the platform, and then users can interact with it and use it whenever and wherever they want. So the platform team is not just technologies. It's made of people that do drive consensus within the company. So they don't limit what your user can do, but they bring a portfolio of technologies that can help you and to bring efficiency to your teams that need to scale, they need to write software, okay, and they need to do it in the most independent way as possible. So the platform team all the time do evangelization to the final users within the company. So the platform team is a value. It's definitely a value within the company and not a cost. There is a really nice book that is Team Topologies that I invite you to read for sure. They based on some laws, some cognitive laws, you know, the human can understand just a certain amount of information. They cannot understand more. There is a limit in our brain, okay, physical limit nowadays until now. So in this book, based on these definitions, these kind of laws that we have within our brain, this book postulates 4 kinds of teams. And you see in the bottom of the slide, there is a platform team is the foundation to the rest of the company. So again, platform team enables a team that can develop software. Within the platform team, there are different skills that basically enable all the other teams within the company itself. I worked every day with this kind of landscape. In Kiratech, we are partners of the Cloud Native Computing Foundation that coordinates open source technologies. And this screenshot is just a smaller part of the web page that summarizes all the products that are available nowadays to companies. And it's a mess, it's a nightmare, it's a labyrinth. You don't know which piece of the puzzle put together because you don't know if they overlap, they are mutually exclusive, they are complementary. So we need to simplify this complexity. We needed to do because we started to work in the DevOps. There is a really interesting track that is DevOps within this conference, but I want to bring you the idea that DevOps needs platform team to scale because DevOps is a methodology to do your job faster, with a more quality, with security in place, but it cannot scale if it's not within a platform that is consumable in a self-service way. And when we started to think how we can put down this platform team, this platform as a product, okay, definitions are great, Diego, methodologies are more than fine, but how can we physically create our product, okay? And so I started to think what we are already telling to developers, okay? It's years that we are saying to developers, please break down your monolith, okay? Move to microservices, move to an architecture that is reusable, it's smaller, it's easier to maintain, it's easier to upgrade, it's easier to patch. So our developers are already working with microservices architecture since, let's say, 2016 at least. But if we move back to the infrastructure operation guys, we don't find this approach. We find monoliths in automation. So I started to think, okay, we need to write a product, an open source product, that can help infrastructure operation guys align to the architecture of microservices, okay? And so I didn't think to write a new software, a new tool, because I want to simplify technology without putting a new technology, okay? So I look into myself, okay, into the knowledge of working every day with customers, or working in the open source platform, open source landscape, etc. And I found out that Kubernetes, that is a container orchestrator, that is an industrial standard nowadays, is already something that can help the platform team put down the platform ops methodology, because it's made of operators. An operator is basically a control loop. It's an infinite cycle that interacts with an API and acts to create something specifically you told to the control loop. Okay, so you write a specification in a YAML file, you put it to the operator, and then the operator reacts and creates, updates, reads, or deletes that resource, calling an API. So this is something already a de facto standard. So it's something that's already useful, because Kubernetes has operators, but these operators can interact not only with the Kubernetes APIs, but also with whatever API, okay? The API for Just Eat, the API for GitHub, the API for the train ticket platform. So any API out there can be useful and can be put into an operator of Kubernetes. And so the next step is, okay, Diego, this is a great idea. Okay, this is the first feedback that usually users tell me. But the next phase is, okay, an operator talks with an API, but within a company, I need to talk with a lot of APIs. So how I put together all this complexity with this approach? Our answer is, let's compose these operators, okay? Let's find out a way to expose a simple resource to the user, but within the platform, we can compose smaller pieces together, exactly as we are saying to developers, put your microservices together to build up an application. We are saying to the infrastructure operation guys, or the platform teams, which we are looking for, compose your operators and expose a single simple resource, okay? And this composition can be also mapped within your company, because within the company you have a lot of skills. You have skills for databases, skills for networking, skills for security. So these skills need to transition to implement some operators that can interact within your domain of knowledge. And another advantage of using Kubernetes operators is that Kubernetes acts also as a data model, because I'm forced to write a Kubernetes operator. If I don't write it in the right way, it doesn't build up. So we cannot write a wrong operator, let's say. And to write an operator, I need to define the kind of resource I want to create or delete. So Kubernetes can act and ensure also that the data model is consistent and is aligned to the Kubernetes vanilla implementation. So we solve also the problem of modeling our resources. So there are 3 use cases that we try to solve with our open source project. The first one is helping these platform teams to build up a platform ops approach. The second one is to offer a portal to developers, because maybe the platform team is able to insert some useful services for users, but users don't understand how to use them. because services interaction is too complex. You need to have too much knowledge of that service to use it. Maybe you just need to know, I need that service and I want to put just the name and the description of that resource, okay? So we also implemented a developer portal that not only helps users to understand what they are looking for, but also to centralize all the data the user needs without getting lost in that labyrinth you saw before. And the third use case is the FinOps. FinOps is an emerging trend. You will see along 2023 a lot of discussion about FinOps. FinOps means budgeting in the first phase. So I need to understand how much my infrastructure, my architecture will cost on-premise, in a public cloud, in an hybrid mode, multi-cloud. So budgeting is a complex task we want to solve with the FinOps module. The second phase is cost allocation, understand where you are spending your money and why. And the third phase is let's do some cost optimization. We are doing a lot of research and design about the green impact of our resources. So we want to spend the less resources possible because we will spend less money, but our green impact will be smaller. Our energy consumption will be smaller. So it's a win-win adoption. And FinOps is the third use case we wanna solve. So fast forward, Crateo obviously needs Kubernetes to work. So you can install Crateo in any kind of Kubernetes distribution, and you can use Crateo to create whatever you want, wherever you want, in a self-service approach. And also Crateo is composable, so there is no lock-in, no limit. The limit is just the use case you want to bring within Crateo. So I invite you to connect to our GitHub organization, download the open source software. It's completely free, and I'm greedy to get your feedbacks. And if you want to talk with me later on, you can interact with the QR code, and then we can schedule a meeting together. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Diego. Are there any questions so far? No questions? I would have questions. So, do you have any templates or demos as well for this? Because I think it's, as you mentioned before, there are a vast amount of applications. Everybody's promising no more work for DevOps, but of course one has to understand how they work and analyze them and so on. So it's always nice if there is some demo or some testing environment in place.
Yeah, there are. If you go to the GitHub organization, there are a lot of demos you can try on your own. There is an online lab which you can interact with. A lot of templates to understand the different use cases. So yeah, there is a lot of material we recently launched, and if something is missing, we are open to get some feedbacks from the community and add new demos and new templates.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. So thank you, Diego. This track is this was the last talk for this track today. So the cultural change and educational track is closing here. There are still some other tracks going on. So if you want to change to them, just go ahead. And so I remind you that every talk is on YouTube, as we are streaming right now, but the talks will be on YouTube then for later, to be watched later. And the last thing I can say is thank you very much. See you next year at the SFSCon.